So, it was 1999 somewhere, and you're an underground hip-hop artist by the name of Funky DL. You've had multiple projects and records with your label, with probably much more in the making. There isn't really anything much in present time, besides chilling down in your room, doing whatever, right until a phone rings out of nowhere. You pick it up having absolutely no idea who just called, and wait for what kind of person is going to come out at the other end. The stranger was soon picked up by you as a Japanese dude who owned two record shops all the way down in Tokyo, Japan. In love with your records, he was asking if the two of you can work with each other on some tunes, even if it means that he must book you a ticket to his music shop in Shibuya. And his name was Jun Seba Yamada. Let's rewind a bit. Seba was born on the 7th of February of 1974, coincidentally the same date with Jay Della's birthday, who's also an influential hip-hop artist, in the Nishi Azabu area of Shibuya, Tokyo. And that's it, really, in the info part. Yeah? I'm just as surprised as you are. Not a lot of info was really confirmed or given out by him, nor his loved ones, mostly for the reasons of privacy. So far to now, besides his birthday and place of birth, almost all of his other primary information, like who Seba's parents are or where he went to receive education, remains anonymous to the public, leaving the rest to speculate on behalf of the available resources we have. But believe me when I say that you don't need to, because for all of the infos you can get out of searching for countless and countless of places, what he is and the things that define his legacy are enough for you to end your yearns there. Seba was known for being pretty business savvy, with two Shibuya located music record shops that were built from the ground up by his own two hands purely because of his passion in music, with definitely hundreds of records of different songs and artists as a result for many years of collecting and archiving, particularly his most loved genres spanning from hip-hop, rapping, and beats, to jazz, funk, soul music, R&B, instrumentals, reggae, just lining up rows after rows inside of his shop. He's not only confined to that one spot either. This man was inspired to create and experiment on music of his own as well, with the legendary 90s hip-hop era and jazz music as his primary influence. Not to mention the accompanying fact that he crafted his very own record label, Hideout Productions, in 1998. It's during these times that Seba's iconic stage name, one that would be known for unofficially, Nujabes, was made, which he cleverly thought of by inverting his full name's letters, spawning out his first ever song with the help of the label on the same year, now with the name Nujabes set. From then on forward, as he slowly built up his reputations by using his independent musical outlet, expanding his connections in the process, the man's purpose still remains as simple as it was any other week. To dig around, see what other new grooves he could find to create, and sample with the help of all the analog devices and instruments laying around his space every day up to use, or just enjoy, with the abundance of records he kept and stored, and the most essential out of all of them, to find a signature style that he can make a marking on. So, in 2001, his second ever project in the form of an EP, Dimension Ball Tracks Volume 1, was one of his following showcase. The record featured an astoundingly abstract but spacey productions, while making major use of DJ scratching to throw into the mix. As the second semi-major work that Nujabes has put into his catalog, really showed what Seba can truly make out of his skills, turning out to be your run-of-the-mill catchy but fascinating and gleeful hip-hop/beat record. And while it may not be the best of all of his current work, it's still a really interesting material on what one of his many earlier musical creations was like. So unfortunately, right now, there seems to be no online releases of Volume 1 whatsoever. Yeah, I know it's kind of a bummer, but if this makes it up, the other volumes are up there on YouTube as well. So if you're on for some, I don't know, good mixtape, it's right there. Check it out. For now, let's rewind a bit to the year. One thing that's been considered a core trait to his musical identity and musicianship was Seba's indescribable love for hip-hop. That jazzy, melancholic, sorrow-like cutting beat sounds present with the rapping and hip-hop scene would play a crucial footing as a source of influence to many of his works later on. And out of the many hundreds of artists that he listened at the time, was one by the name of Funky DL. Funky DL was a pretty off-the-grid MC. Not really anything like a big major issue person within the industry, but still an altogether respected and well-known artist of his scene. And Seba, being the music fiend that he is after discovering Funky's work, immediately became one of his fans shortly after, ordering copies of Funky's label's Washington classics so that he could listen to them by himself. And it took a while later until Seba was asking himself on whether he should take his admirations of the MC to a new level.
So this dedication album, February, dedicated to Jay Dilla and Nujabes. You mentioned that you've worked with Nujabes, or you had worked with him before.
Yeah.
How did that come about? How did you first meet?
We met in '99, and I used to release records on Washington Classics, and back then I used to put my mobile number on the label,
Okay.
and ship them out. And he had a record store in Japan called Guinness Records, and he would order my vinyl in, and one day he just called me.
Wow.
He just called. I was sitting in my room, and my phone rang, and it was him, and I didn't know who he was. I didn't know. And that time he hadn't released records.
Okay.
So he was just a record store owner,
Okay.
budding producer. And he called me and he was just like, yeah, I really like your music and I've been ordering your records for a long time. And he actually said he'd been trying to get in touch with me for like over a year, but I think the record label I was signed to previous was blocking that for some reason. I don't know what that was all about. But anyway, he just said to me, yeah, like he wants me to come to Japan and do some production, do some vocaling on his production if I like his work. So he emailed me some MP3s, I think, and then that was back when I had dial-up,
Right.
So I think I had to go internet cafe or somewhere to even listen to them, and I listened to them and I was feeling them. I wasn't like, overwhelmingly like wow, but I was like, he's got some flavors. So I thought I could work with this, and obviously they were demos, so they weren't finished joints, they were work in progress. So he just sent me the money to buy a ticket, and he trusted me on that, and I purchased the ticket, emailed him the receipt, and next thing you know, I was in Japan in the summer of '99.
Wow.
Recording tracks in his studio. So that's how we met.
Reluctant or not, Seba's enthusiastic nature of it all and his willingness to book Funky a flight to Tokyo is enough to show Funky DL that this would be worth it for a long term. And eventually, he did fly over to Tokyo, and resulting in Nujabes' first ever collaborations in the year 2000, a single produced by the two of them. It's a project one that really boasted Seba's journey for the better, setting his approach for music in a way, with the sharp assurance of his musical experience, a sick collab with someone he'd been wanting to meet, and the next few years of other singles and EPs and projects, experimented and crafted, and more collabs, came his first ever 2 official albums made by his label in the year 2003. Metaphorical Music, a soulful hip-hop album of 15 tracks in total, adjusted on the finest instrumentals, spending upon each and every records he can find a sample on, digging through his almost entirely analog-based devices as reliance for audio production, and giving it a good chunk of fresh instruments to mix in seamlessly with the constant flowing beats, and topping it all off with his collectives of MCs leading the charge for each of the respective track. He even have one of his close friends, producer Uyama Hiroto, to play sax on the album. All that resulted at the end was an incredibly clean assembled hip-hop release. Nujabes really knew how to utilize his available assets going in and at the constant participations of his many collabs to make the album what it is. Each tracks were tight-packed with their own refreshing instrumentation, from the first song Blessing It all the way to the dreamlike but passionate ending of the final track Peaceland. Absolutely beautiful use of piano melody. One aspect of Nujabes' music that's always been cherished by people is his ability to harmoniously arise or personal emotions, especially nostalgia, all from a few beats and instruments put together. Something that a tired or overworked soul searching for an exit path could look for to sit back and drift along with the music. Away from stress, away from issues, away from expectations and the pressures of normal life. Listening to the subtle but striking quotes on the tracks that will only stick with you the more you listen. It's just a remarkably wonderful album the whole way through, even if some parts of it may seem a bit repetitive. It amounts to nothing when you just look at how good the album is in general. And you know what the best part is that not only is there another album that's entirely just as great as Metaphorical, released in the same year by him, Hideout Productions' first collection being a compiled basket of all of Nujabes' either archive, B-sides, or previous pieces, including other newly made ones that did one mega album, but what he has created as a whole assuredly consolidated the style that he'd been dying to look for since the day he picked up music, securing a path for his journey in the next few years.